are you?
Well, I could give you some wild tale of being a Russian astronaut or the designer of an experimental spacecraft.
For 3 seasons, Ray Walston played the charming alien everyone loved. But in 1986, he finally told the truth. He said he wished he had never heard of Martians or spaceships. He called the experience a prison. What happened on that set that made a Tony Award winner feel so trapped? There were 75 camera setups a day, scripts handed out hours before filming, and a secret health battle he fought alone while the world laughed at his jokes. The real story of My Favorite Martian is darker than anyone expected. And it starts with a boy in Mississippi who had nothing. Ray Walston entered the world on November 2, 1914, in Laurel, Mississippi, a loud lumber town where sawmills never slept, and money was always tight. His father, Harry Rex Walston, worked as a lumberjack and brought home just $10 a week during the rough years of the 1920s. Ray was born Herman Raymond Walston, the youngest of 3 children, growing up behind his brother Earl and his sister Carrie in a house where every dollar was stretched thin. Life around him was hard and physical, built on sweat, timber, and long days outdoors. Yet even as a boy, his eyes drifted elsewhere. Whenever he could scrape together the price of admission, he slipped into the local theater to watch silent movies. Those flickering screens pulled him away from the world his father knew. While sawdust filled the air outside, Ray dreamed of stages, voices, and applause, and that pull never loosened its grip. Around 1925, when Ray was about 11, the family moved south to New Orleans, and that move changed everything. The city buzzed with music, lights, and live performance, and Ray jumped in head first. He started at the very bottom, carrying spears, standing in the background, and delivering single lines in small repertory shows. Nothing about it was glamorous. He sold tickets at movie theaters during the day and mopped stage floors late at night just to stay close to the work. Slowly, without realizing it, he learned how theater really functioned. He watched how actors held an audience, how sets were moved, how timing could make or break a scene. The days were long and exhausting, but the lessons stayed with him. Those teenage years in New Orleans built a work ethic that never cracked and gave him a full view of the stage from every angle. When the family later moved to Houston, Texas, his father believed the path forward was clear. The oil business was booming, and Harry Rex Walston wanted his youngest son to learn it and secure a stable future. Ray listened, but his heart was already elsewhere. In his early 20s, when a traveling repertory troupe passed through Houston, he made a decision that shocked everyone around him. He left home and joined them. It was not just a career move, it was a clean break. He sold tickets, acted on stage, and lived life on the road, choosing uncertainty over security. His father was devastated. To him, Ray had thrown away a dependable future for something reckless. To Ray, it was the only future that made sense. In 1938, that choice began to pay off when Ray joined the Houston Civic Theater under director Margot Jones. His first major production was High Tor, and from that moment on, his life became a non-stop cycle of rehearsal and performance. For the next 6 years, he averaged about 12 different roles every year. That meant learning a new play almost every month, switching accents, rhythms, and personalities without pause. By the end of that stretch, he had played roughly 72 different characters. Margot Jones pushed him hard, but she also shaped him. In 1939, Stage magazine named her one of only 12 outstanding theater directors outside New York, and she saw something special in Ray early on. The training was relentless, but it carved him into a disciplined, adaptable actor. When she later took him to Cleveland on a 2-year contract, it felt like the next logical step. By the early 1940s, Ray was performing at the Cleveland Playhouse, which he later called the finest regional theater in America. Over 3 seasons, he appeared in 22 productions, including You Touched Me, the first play ever written by Tennessee Williams, which Margot Jones personally directed. Cleveland polished what Houston had built. It added depth and control to his performances. Then, in 1945, at age 30, Ray boarded a train to New York City. He arrived with experience, hunger, and very little else. He found a small apartment, started auditioning immediately, and within the same year landed his Broadway debut in Maurice Evans' production of Hamlet. His role was modest, but the door was finally open. That Hamlet was no ordinary production. It was the famous G.I. Hamlet, a version Maurice Evans had shortened to under 2 hours for American soldiers during World War II. When it opened on Broadway on December 13, 1945, at the Columbus Circle Theater, Ray played Osric, understudying Morton DaCosta. The show ran until April 8, 1946, and for Ray, it felt like the end of a long climb and the start of another. The next few years were brutal. He appeared in plays that closed almost instantly. A revival of The Front Page in 1946 disappeared overnight. The survivors in 1948 met the same fate. Still, he kept showing up. Around that same time, he became one of the earliest members of the Actors Studio, studying under Elia Kazan and Cheryl Crawford. Slowly, piece by piece, his reputation grew. In 1953, the tide finally turned. On May 28th, Rogers and Hammerstein cast him as Mac, the dry and cynical stage manager in Me and Juliet at the Majestic Theater. The show ran for 358 performances, lasting until April 3, 1954, and gave Ray his first real Broadway stability. He did not sing or dance, yet his presence anchored the production. Audiences noticed. So did director George Abbott. 2 years later, on May 5, 1955, Abbott cast Ray as Mr. Applegate, the devil himself, in Damn Yankees. The role fit him perfectly. His chemistry with Gwen Verdon lit up the stage, and the show became a massive hit, running for 1 through 19 performances until October 12, 1957. In 1956, Ray won the Tony Award for Best Actor in a Musical, finally reaching the peak he had chased for decades. Hollywood soon came calling. In 1957, he moved to film with Kiss Them For Me, starring alongside Cary Grant. A year later, he brought Mr. Applegate to the screen in the film version of Damn Yankees, followed by South Pacific, where he played Luther Billis, a role he had originated years earlier. By 1960, he appeared in Billy Wilder's The Apartment, part of a cast that would help the film win Best Picture. In 1964, he took on darker material in Kiss Me Stupid, embracing controversy rather than avoiding it. Then, in 1963, television entered his life in a way he never expected. CBS cast him as Uncle Martin in My Favorite Martian, and Ray accepted for practical reasons. The show paid well, and he held partial ownership. Production was punishing. Episodes took all 5 weekdays to film, with up to 75 setups a day and almost no rehearsal time. Scripts were handed out hours before filming. Special effects were done by hand, with wires, props, and precise timing. Despite the chaos, the show premiered on September 29, 1963, and became an instant hit. It ranked number 10 in Nielsen ratings in its first season and ran for 107 episodes until May 1, 1966. When CBS executives looked over the early scripts for My Favorite Martian in early 1963, the excitement they expected simply was not there. Something felt flat. The stories leaned too hard on Tim solving small reporter problems, and the Martian element barely mattered. That worried the network because the whole point of the show was a stranger from another planet trying to survive on Earth. So before cameras even rolled for the September 29, 1963 premiere, CBS made a quiet but desperate move. They brought in Sherwood Schwartz to fix what was already breaking. When Schwartz went through the stack of scripts, the situation looked worse than anyone expected. Only about 5 or 6 could be saved, and even those needed total rewrites. Everything else went straight into the trash. Schwartz shifted the heart of the show away from Tim and centered it on Uncle Martin, his damaged spaceship, and his confusion with life on what he called a backwards planet. That last-minute rescue changed the tone completely and stopped the series from collapsing before it ever began. For a while, the show found its rhythm, but new problems followed as soon as success arrived. The first 2 seasons were filmed in black and white at Desilu Studios, and the budget stayed tight but manageable. Each episode cost around $57,000, and they completed 37 episodes per season without falling behind. Then in 1965, everything changed when the show jumped to color for Season 3. To make that possible, production moved from Desilu to MGM Culver Studios so they could use proper color facilities and a larger backlot. The move looked exciting on paper, but the money told a harsher story. Color filming pushed the cost per episode up to $70,000, a jump of 23%. That increase forced painful cuts. Instead of 37 episodes, only 32 could be afforded. Even worse, when CBS approved a 2-part color premiere involving Martin's time machine, the budget strain became so heavy that a fully completed black and white episode called Time Out for Martian had to be shelved. It sat unseen until May 8, 1966, when it finally aired as the show's last first-run episode. At the same time, even the props began causing trouble. The Martian spaceship that looked so sleek on screen started as a simple wooden prop, painted silver and light enough to lift for takeoff shots. It worked at first, but repeated use made it crack and splinter. To solve that, special effects expert Joe Lombardi rebuilt it using a stone mold and recast the entire ship in fiberglass with a steel frame inside. The result looked impressive, but it weighed over 400 pounds. That weight turned the spaceship into a serious hazard. Any scene that required tilting, lifting, or suspending it became risky. The design itself was inspired by the Jaguar E-Type, which had stunned the world in 1961 with its futuristic curves. The full-size ship measured 117 inches long, 55 inches wide, and 37 inches tall, complete with reverse gull-wing doors and quilted black vinyl walls. It looked beautiful, but it terrified the crew. On screen, everything still felt warm and effortless. In the spring or summer of 1964, TV Picture Life ran a glowing interview where Ray Walston and Bill Bixby praised each other endlessly. Walston said their chemistry clicked instantly and claimed they never struggled to adjust. Bixby, still new to television at 29 when the show began in 1963, spoke openly about learning more from watching Walston than from anything else in his career. What the article did not show was the quiet tension that sometimes simmered behind the cameras. Walston was 49 and deeply methodical, someone who liked to dig and search during rehearsals. Bixby was energetic and spontaneous, pushing instinct over analysis. The schedule made things worse. Episodes moved fast, rehearsal time was short, and long days left little space to smooth out differences. Most of the time they made it work, but the pressure never fully disappeared. Even humor backstage sometimes crossed a line. Walston believed strongly in staying physically sharp and rode his bicycle around the Desilu lot every morning starting at 7 a.m. He parked it in the same place every day. In December 1963, he even gave Bixby a bicycle as a Christmas gift to pull him into the routine. One day during a break, Walston went to grab his bike and found it missing. Panic set in. He searched the soundstage, questioned crew members, and grew angrier by the minute. No one said a word. Finally, Bixby calmly asked him to look up. Hanging high in the rafters was Walston's bicycle, suspended as a prank Bixby had arranged. Walston later admitted at a 1991 convention in Buena Park that relief came first, but laughter took much longer. As the seasons rolled on, the physical toll began to show. From September 29, 1963 to May 1, 1966, Walston worked under the grinding pace of 1960s television. Table reads on Mondays, rehearsals Tuesday through Thursday, filming on Fridays. Long hours stacked week after week. He tried to fight the strain by building a personal gym on Soundstage 10 at Desilu in 1964 and often spoke about the importance of staying active during downtime. Still, 3 seasons of relentless production wore him down, mentally and physically. The industry offered little sympathy. My Favorite Martian exploded out of the gate, ranking number 10 in Nielsen ratings during its first season in 1963 to 1964. That success locked Walston into a system that valued momentum over well-being. When the show moved to MGM in the summer of 1965, it was not for creative reasons, but because Lucille Ball needed Desilu's stages for a new project called Star Trek. Walston later described his experience as feeling like prison. When cancellation finally came, he said he had never felt more free. By the 3rd season, frustration took over. Ratings had already slipped from number 10 in Season 1 to number 24 in Season 2, and the scripts began to feel thinner. Walston worried he was being flattened into one role. Before the show, he had won a Tony Award in 1956 for Damn Yankees and appeared in the Oscar-winning film The Apartment in 1960. Now he was afraid antennas were all anyone could see. In 1986, he admitted he wished he had never heard of Martians or spaceships, saying the show nearly ended his career. Producers tried one last fix. To reduce Walston's screen time, they introduced Uncle Martin's 11-year-old nephew, Andromeda, in Season 3, played by 14-year-old Wayne Stamm. Stamm impressed early, and the plan was bold. Walston and Stamm would alternate episodes, toys and merchandise were already being discussed, and a multi-year contract was signed. For a moment, Walston felt his wishes were finally being answered. Then CBS rejected the idea. Andromeda appeared in only one episode, the 24th of Season 3, and vanished forever. The ratings collapse was brutal. Season 3 dropped entirely out of the top 30, finishing at number 45. Mid-season rankings placed the show at number 42 out of 99 programs with a 19.3 rating. By the end, nothing could save it. CBS canceled the series in 1966 after 107 episodes, with the final airing on May 1st. Walston felt relief, not loss. Years later, he spoke openly about the pain. In 1986, he said he hated the show and would never have done it if he had known the cost. It was a bitter confession from a man who once dominated Broadway. Still, he refused to fade away. He rebuilt his career piece by piece, appearing in Paint Your Wagon in 1969, The Sting in 1973, Popeye in 1980, and finally Fast Times at Ridgemont High in 1982 as Mr. Hand. That role introduced him to a new generation and gave him something he had not felt in decades: freedom. Ray Walston stepped into the world of Rome, Wisconsin in 1992 when he became Judge Henry Bone on David E. Kelley's new series Picket Fences, and the moment he appeared on screen, something steady and sharp settled into the show. The series aired on CBS from September 18, 1992 to June 26, 1996, running for 88 episodes across 4 seasons, and Ray's Judge became one of its anchors. What made it even more meaningful was the quiet thread leading back to 1990, when Walston appeared in an episode of L.A. Law that Kelley had co-written. Kelley never forgot him. When Picket Fences was born 2 years later, he shaped Judge Bone with Walston's voice already in mind. At first, the character appeared only as a recurring presence, but the way Walston carried each line made it impossible to keep him at the edges. Soon, he was part of the main cast, exactly where he belonged. It felt like the kind of role he had been waiting for through decades of being shuffled into lighter work. Here, he could show the weight he had always carried inside him. And the timing landed with the force of a long overdue reward. The reward arrived in full in 1995 when he won his first Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a drama series at age 80. He had been nominated the year before in 1994 and walked away empty-handed. So this moment felt almost like a sigh he had been holding since 1949, when he first appeared on television in half-hour murder mysteries. After the 1995 ceremony, he told the Los Angeles Times that the win felt like finally arriving at something he had been working toward for most of his life. It also reminded people that he could stand beside younger actors in the category and still walk away with the prize. The viewers had already signaled their approval when he received the Best Actor award from Viewers for Quality Television in 1994, and now the industry itself was catching up. Judge Bone had given him the room to stretch, but it was Walston who filled the room with something unforgettable. The next year deepened that truth. In 1996, Ray Walston won his second consecutive Emmy for the same role, becoming one of the rare actors in their 80s to take home back-to-back awards. During his acceptance speech at the 47th Emmy Awards, he thanked the people who shaped the world of Rome. He called out David E. Kelley, Michael Pressman, director Dennis Smith and his crew, and Roy Dois. Then he paused to give special thanks to Alice West for her devotion to the show. The words came out soft and sincere, and the room felt it. The wind settled something permanent around him. It showed that his career had never been about sentimentality or nostalgia. It was about mastery, and Judge Bone had simply revealed it to everyone who had missed it before. While he was redefining himself with Judge Bone, another universe was calling him forward. In 1992, the same year Picket Fences premiered, Ray Walston stepped into Star Trek: The Next Generation as Boothby, the beloved groundskeeper of Starfleet Academy. He filmed his scenes on January 27, 1992, at the Japanese Garden at the Tillman Water Reclamation Plant in Van Nuys, starting his day with a 5:30 a.m. pickup and a 6 a.m. makeup call. The producers said he had been their first choice from the start, even though the character had only been spoken about in earlier episodes. When he finally appeared, the match felt natural. Critics praised the easy rhythm between him and Patrick Stewart. Director Paul Lynch described them as an American pro and an English pro who instantly understood each other. Walston's gentle presence made Boothby feel like someone who had always been there, waiting for the right episode to step out of the shadows. Years later, the costume he wore in that episode sold at an It's a Wrap auction for $700, proving the quiet affection fans had for the role. His work in the Star Trek world didn't end there. He returned again in 2 Voyager episodes during Season 5, first in The Fight as a hallucinated version of Boothby, and then in the Flesh, where he portrayed an alien from species 8472 who had taken Boothby's form. That episode built an entire Starfleet training ground crafted by the aliens, and his character stood at the center of the infiltration. It pulled a new generation of viewers toward him, many of whom knew him only as the Martian, with antennae from My Favorite Martian. Here, he showed them warmth and insight layered with something deeper. Boothby became one of those minor characters who never felt minor. His presence shaped the world around him, and the fan base carried him forward long after the episodes ended. recognition finally arrived in the real world, too. On December 8, 1995, Ray Walston received his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame at 7070 Hollywood Boulevard. He stood there at 81 years old, surrounded by his Picket Fences family, with Kelly, Kathy Baker, and Fivush Finkel by his side. The moment was bittersweet because it came only 1 year after his lupus diagnosis, a diagnosis that had hit him with unexpected force when he was 80. After nearly 50 years of performing on Broadway, television, and film, Hollywood was finally giving him the public acknowledgement he had quietly earned long ago. The star honored his roots in live theater, the world he entered back in 1938 when he was sweeping floors in New Orleans playhouses just to get close to the stage. It felt like life circling back to honor the boy who once dreamed from the wings. The lupus diagnosis in 1994 had been a shock, even though the disease may have followed him for years without detection. Lupus can attack the kidneys, heart, lungs, brain, and blood cells all at once. And for someone in their 80s, the danger was immense. Yet the timing carried a cruel twist. He had just won his first Emmy in 1995, and another was on the way in 1996. He had waited decades for this level of recognition, only to face a disease that steadily drained his strength. Even so, he refused to back away from the work that had shaped his life. He continued acting until 2000, appearing in shows like Star Trek, Voyager, and Touched by an Angel. In 1998 and 1999, he stepped back into Boothby's shoes again, proving that even while fighting illness, he still had the presence to command a scene. In 2000, weakened but determined, he played Benjamin Clay on Touched by an Angel, giving the role the same care he had shown since 1938, when he first learned the craft from the ground up. Each performance became a quiet act of resistance against the disease closing in on him. His final television appearance unfolded after his death. The Seventh Heaven episode 100 aired on January 29, 2001, 28 days after he passed away on January 1st. In it, he played Sergeant Millard Holmes, a homeless veteran carrying pride and pain in equal measure. The role echoed parts of Walston's own past and the struggles he had seen growing up during the Depression. Viewers who tuned in already knew he was gone, and that knowledge shaded every scene with a quiet tenderness. Filming had taken place only weeks before lupus complications finally took him at his Beverly Hills home at age 86. His wife Ruth and their daughter Catherine were with him when he slipped away. That episode, meant to be a celebration of the show's 100th milestone, became a gentle farewell instead. There was another full-circle moment before the end. In 1999, he appeared in the big-screen adaptation of My Favorite Martian, but not as Uncle Martin. Instead, he played Armitan, also known as Neonert, an older Martian stranded on Earth since the 1960s. The layers were impossible to miss. His character had been stuck on Earth since the same decade the original show ended in 1966, mirroring the way the role had followed Walston through his career. Christopher Lloyd took on the main Martian role this time, while Walston slipped into the story like someone returning to a place he once knew but no longer wished to inhabit. Whether it was reconciliation or simply another job is unclear, but it was his final theatrical film. When it was released in February 1999, no one knew it marked the closing arc of a 62-year journey that began in New Orleans theaters when he was still a teenager. Ray Walston's death came quietly on January 1, 2001, in his Beverly Hills home, 60 days after his 86th birthday on November 2, 2000. His agent confirmed it as natural causes connected to the lupus that had trailed him for 6 years. He had worked until October 2000 when he filmed Touched by an Angel, refusing to let illness silence him until his body left him no choice. After his death, he was cremated, and his ashes were given to his daughter, Catherine. No traditional grave, no grand monument, just a private return to the people who had known him beyond the lights. His marriage to Ruth Calvert stood as one of Hollywood's rarest achievements. They married on November 3, 1943, and stayed together for 57 years and 59 days until his death. They had one daughter, Catherine Ann, and two grandchildren who carried the family line forward. Ruth had met him long before anyone knew his name, back when he was working in regional theater in Houston under Margot Jones. She watched the entire climb, from stage sweeper to Hollywood icon, through every shift in fortune. There were battles no one knew about during that climb. Ray Walston lived with diabetes for most of his career, a fact kept hidden until years after he died. He managed it privately during the long production days of My Favorite Martian from 1963 to 1966, even while spending hours in thick makeup and prosthetics. The condition demanded constant monitoring and careful eating, which clashed with television's rushed schedules. He never complained. He never used it as a reason to step back. The silence surrounding it made fans reevaluate the strength behind his gentle performances. It suggested that the smiling Martian who floated through scenes may have been shielding pain that audiences never saw. One of the least-known chapters of his life emerged from the 1950s. In 1958, he worked with top-secret clearance for the United States military, narrating classified Operation Hardtack reports. Hardtack involved 35 nuclear detonations at Eniwetok and Bikini Atolls, including the massive 3.8 megaton Orange shot on August 12, 1958. For him to be trusted with classified weapons data at the height of Cold War tensions spoke volumes about the other side of the man people mostly knew as a comedian. It meant he carried nuclear secrets until he died, a responsibility that never touched the public eye. His legacy kept growing even after his passing. In January 2025, Star Trek Starfleet Academy introduced Boothby Memorial Park in Season 1, Episode 2, titled Beta Test. It appeared in wide establishing shots where Laura Thok trained cadets outdoors. More than 24 years had passed since Walston's death, yet the franchise still honored him by name. It sat alongside memorials like the James T. Kirk Pavilion, proving Boothby had become part of Star Trek's emotional landscape. Director Paul Lynch once said that Walston and Patrick Stewart were terrific together because they were equals, and that feeling had carried forward into the future of the franchise. New fans were still meeting Boothby, and even now, they felt the warmth Ray Walston brought to every moment he touched.